Simmering Heat and Spoken Non-Confessions by Suzanne from Germany. Summer in the Mojave was something. Depending on the air, on where you were, on whatever weather gods hadn't been wiped out by radiation poisoning, it could be decently nice or boiling hot. This one was shaping up to be of the latter variety. Heat was wafting up from the cracks in the road like they were trying to finally evaporate completely. Simmering in the air, making it oppressively heavy. Winds, usually one of the more annoying constants of Mojave weather, had stilled completely, leaving only the burning sun and the heat. Even the critters usually littering the nooks and crannies of the desert had opted to stay out of sight on a day like this. Which of course meant it was the perfect kind of weather for stupid ideas. Combat boots weren't made for this kind of heat. Sam loved those boots more than anything, but right now they were making every step she took heavier and heavier. It must have been nearing noon at this point, judging by the height from which the sun was burning down on them, which meant they'd been walking for easily 3 hours. Russell's complaints had turned from loud to muttering at the halfway mark.
Goddamn heat is making my balls itch. Honestly, how much of this shit do you really need?
Sam knew where he was coming from. Really. It was hot as hell, after all. Summer, in full force. And he still refused to get rid of the heavy Ranger duster in favor of something weather appropriate. For her part, she'd cut off her jeans weeks ago.
Idiot.
Thing was, Sam loved it. Loved the sweat prickling on her skin. The way the world was hot and out of focus. Fuzzy. The way it seemed to narrow to just their steps on the cracked road. Part of why she suggested this little excursion to Lake Mead was that feeling. Another were the ants crawling under her skin. She needed to get out of Vegas. Staying cooped up in the city made her go a little crazy after a while. It was hot as balls out. A trip to the refreshing little wonder of nature seemed like a decent excuse. She would have gone alone. But alone had been a two-person word for so long now.
What does that mean? What's that mean?
She hadn't thought to say no to his coming with. Of course, that didn't stop him from regretting his insistence. Could have had goddamn air conditioning. Sam didn't even try to keep the responding smirk off her face. She just pleasantly lightheaded. She felt pleasantly lightheaded. Most people would probably call it suffering. Maybe she was just a sucker for punishment. Or the desert had seeped into her bones enough that anything else was unthinkable. And would have missed out on me skinny dipping in Lake Mead. Gotta have your priorities straight, Russ. My priority is not dying from fucking heat stroke. I feel great. You're wobbling. There was no real concern in his voice, just the slight amount of fond exasperation she had gotten so used to. He reached a hand out, slightly jostling her balance, but at the same time, making sure he could steady her if needed. Nothing unusual in the gesture, just the subtle signs that there was something these days. Oh, fuck. Subtle signs that they were something else these days. Steady, solid ground beneath her feet, and steady hand against her back. Her personal silver lining. God damn. But the heat was making her sappy. She took the thoughts away and stared at the expanse of glittering water, reflecting the sunlight in front of them. Sam quickened her steps, earning herself a renewed melody of low cursing in response. It was her favorite kind.
What the fuck is happening?
Planning to wrestle a nude lake lurk? Sam wasn't wasting any time getting out of her sweat-soaked clothes. There might be a little blood on them as well. She wasn't quite sure when she'd washed them last. Russell's gaze was predictable in the way it roamed down her body, even as he has rolled his eye.
His eye. His single
Nice touch.
eye.
Russell's gaze was predictable in the way it roamed down her body, even as he rolled his eye. That's some kind of terrible self-depreciation? Russell snorted. You're fucking trying to get eaten by the most pathetic predator this shithole's got. If you wanted to eat me out, you could have just said so.
Just like this.
For the love of... She dashed for the water the moment he took a step towards her. It was like a splash of ice against her sun-heated skin. A welcome shock. She lost footing pretty quickly, but this had been so worth it. Especially considering her partner in crime, looking like he couldn't believe himself, was finally shucking his clothes as well, and wading in after her. She kicked back what he grabbed for her, which only served to dunk them both. Fuck, Sam, he said when he came back up sputtering. She just grinned in response. We're too goddamn old to go skinny dipping. It's better than wasting away in Vegas. You love it. The look he gave her in response was the sweetest kind of victory. Whatever. This time, she ended up with his arms around her waist, tasting lake water and tobacco on his tongue. Delicious.
Oh, that's the good stuff.
The sun was disappearing behind the horizon, leaving behind hues of purple and blue. By the time they roused themselves enough to at least make a fire, Sam watched Russell stumble into his clothes, still lazily sprawled out on the bedrolls, the dusty ranger coat half covering her. Been a while, she said when the fire burned merrily. Since what? Since we slept out here. Yeah, the penthouse suite you kinda got makes that unnecessary. She sat up, moving to make room for him, draping the duster around her body. It was probably unconscious the way he pulled her close, almost immediately, or maybe it was just normal and she was left noticing it in the wake of having nothing else to worry about. Got too many miles in my blood to feel good cooped up there for so long. Just a hopeless fucking drifter. Sounds about right. He shook his head, leaning back a little. Don't pretend you're any different. Maybe I'm just here so you don't get yourself mauled. And maybe you're here because you love it. He didn't reply, just stuck his arm around her waist and pulled closer. Eliminating the minuscule space between their bodies, she let him, grinning just a little. The heat was starting to turn to something more bearable. Clearing the air, somewhere in the far-off distance, gunshots sounded. Not close enough to penetrate their little bubble of calm. I love you. The words were a complete non sequitur, like a lot of this, but she had been tasting them on the air all day. Russell looked down at her head, caught somewhere between amused and surprised. Where'd that come from? Hell if I know, just you being here, I guess. Not like it didn't need to be said at some point. Meaning you would have said the same thing to Cass. She didn't need to look to know the twitch of his smirk, the crinkle of the lines around his good eye. Cass would have never come in the first place. Stop ignoring my fucking point. What? That I'm your partner in stupid bullshit? In sickness, health, and gunfights. Occasionally in crime. Sorry, if you want to be fucking poetic. Fine. The word was drawled out with something else close to boredom. She knew him well enough to see through the act. You get a salvage though moment, or... I was just more thinking of salvaging something for dinner. I'm fucking starving. The movement that had put her at his lap, facing him, was practiced enough to be smooth and unsurprising. Jackass. He was still smiling when she kissed him. Slow and languid. This was easy, too. Unconscious of the way they fit together. His hand tracing the knobs of her spine before reaching her waist, anchoring them together. Just keeping you on your toes. Oh, but wait, guys, there's an alternative ending.
What the fuck?
Because no matter which way you play it, these two can't have a moment to save their lives. Maybe you're here just because you love it. You?
Oh, this is the alternative ending?
Yes, this is the alternative ending.
I love that
Here
we
go.
have options. It's a choose your own adventure story.
If you want, She blinked up from where she rested against his shoulder, slightly confused. Maybe the sun had been getting to her after all. Because I love you. She moved back, incredulous. Seriously? Sam. Russell's voice began to sound strained. Slightly annoyed. His fingers gripped her hip just a little tighter for a fleeting moment before he eased up. He's really been getting on you, I swear. Oh, wasn't even the best sex we ever had. And you're stone cold fucking sober. Forget it. I don't think take back's an option in this case. But ridicule is? Oh. I didn't mean... Also, oh is not being said by anyone. It's outside of the quotation marks. I didn't think you of all people would just come out and say it. Really fucking regretting it right now. And it's such a damn cliche, too. There's a lake, a beach, a fucking sunset, Russell. Are you done? He turned his head towards the sky, groaning. Not yet. Sam, I swear to all that ego and testosterone, here you are. A fucking romantic. Unbelievable. And I love you too. As if you didn't know. You ruined the moment ages ago. But the way he drew her in betrayed a certain sense of relief. She put herself in his lap easily, intently. The afterthought of a kiss was an attempt at apology. I'm no good with having moments, Russ. I realized I fucking loved you when you were too drunk to get it up with the hooker you paid for and decided to sleep it off in my bed, for God's sake.
You know, my mama, she told me drinking that much will make you stupid and you won't be able to make babies. So I said, okay, I don't drink.
Could you just shut up? She didn't have to say make me the way he... Make me. The way he kissed her breath away was more than enough to do the job.